Critical Minerals Association of Australia.
Thank you, Jeff. So I'm going to sort of take a bit more of a helicopter view and just share with you a bit about the Critical Minerals Association, and also talk a bit about an issue that's very close to the association and our members, and that's the need for alternative finance. And I know we've had some conversations throughout this conference about financing the industry, but we'd like to just touch on that a bit further. So just very quickly about the CMA Australia, we actually started in the UK with the UK Association, Critical Minerals Association, and we're very much about representing the industry that is just critical minerals, without, fossil fuel based commodities, and we are an advocate for this energy transition. And we have, I'll just flip through, we have a association in the US, the UK, a partnership in Canada, and we're here in Australia under a banner of the Critical Minerals International Alliance. And our aim is very much to have a conversation about building an alternative supply pathway across like-minded countries. So we are very aligned to, I would say, the Mineral Security Partnership, which the US Ambassador alluded to today. That's just us. Some of you know us and my colleagues, Jeff and Olympia, who sit internationally alongside me. And a couple of things I just wanted to point out in terms of our industry goals is very much around ESG, and what I'm also about to talk to you today on is financing and de-risking projects, which is one of our key themes for the year. So really, if you just look at the state of play in the sector, there's a dire need for alternative finance to really accelerate critical mineral exploration and production. And the traditional mining finance model just isn't, enough to deliver the supply of critical minerals that we need for this energy transition. And currently, the global mining finance tends to go to your commoditized minerals, and as opposed to the very specialist critical minerals that we see out there. So as we know very well, the difficulty is around the risk profile that a lot of these minerals have contained within their operations that make it very difficult to finance. So just having a look at what's happened here, there's been a huge erosion of global mining finance. And there's really essentially less specialist capital available to fund some of these critical mineral projects, and particularly in the early stages, which is what a lot of Australian critical minerals companies and juniors face most particularly. And you can see from the graph there, just looking at the UK and Canada as examples, just how much the capital from specialist funds have declined between 2010 and now. And some of the factors that are affecting that and resulting in this result is very much about the geopolitical tensions that we're seeing globally. There's really no clear route to market outside of China, other than for the commoditized, bigger minerals. And there are a huge number of technological challenges in processing and refining, and we've seen here very recently highly volatile pricing in the market. And as a result of all of that, the very high risk profile that's faced by this sector. So geopolitical shifts are a huge one. we've seen that there's a need and a discussion between countries to actually tie together outside of the dominant Chinese market, and we heard from the Latin Americans earlier as well about forging ties between some of us as producer nations. And here in Australia, with the Foreign Investment Review Board restrictions coming into play, there really is no longer an ability to rely on one dominant financing country, I guess, is what we're seeing, and China being the biggest investor in this space is now we're finding turning to Latin America and Africa as more cheaper and more sort of easier investment destinations. So we also see a huge shift in terms of the Middle Eastern region and their appetite for investing in critical minerals, and that's is a huge competitor to China, but it is in a very different stage as well. Some OEMs are definitely investing in shovel-ready projects, but there's still a gap, and in those early stage exploration projects that we're focused on, particularly in defence and technology metals, which are of a critical importance to Australia. So this is something that you're all too familiar with. The time take to finance projects is so long. There's a huge stop-start kind of nature of raising finance that is actually what drives some of the delays in the financing and in the entire operation and raising capital. And we all know that, on average it takes around 12 years to from discovery to a bankable feasibility study. So really, by the time Australia starts producing critical minerals, other than the big commoditized ones, consumer nations will likely be sourcing from cheaper jurisdictions that are coming online in South America and Africa and even Eastern Europe. So, our concern is very much that Australia may miss out on some of that first mover advantage in that context. So we are having a conversation about, well, how can we finance this transition using alternative financing mechanisms? And there's a range of them out there that have been tried and in different contexts. And it's very much a case of, well, what we have in front of us is not working. And, what can we put forward to use as an alternative and to attract foreign investment, particularly in this country. And we have been actively calling for incentivising exploration, and that's a range of fiscal measures for investors and for the midstream to really finance their projects and balance out the lack of competition that Australia is facing. As well as, continuing with government grants and zero interest loans for projects. And we are very hopeful that the Prime Minister's announcement recently will actually head in this direction of bringing out alternative financing mechanisms for the industry that can be accessed. Our view is that ideally any funding mechanism needs to be very much driven by industry, but supported by government. And it really needs to be very much fit for purpose for non-commoditized critical minerals and those that face these high geopolitical and pricing risks and are traditionally monopolised by a single nation. And, we also want to see government dismantle some of these barriers to investment and through these fiscal incentives to encourage a high-risk appetite. And we ask the question, does Australia need to pick some winners to get ahead? And with that comes obviously a massive risk, but also a potential upside as well. As we've discussed throughout this conference, there is no downstream sector fully established yet in Australia, and that market needs to be created. And as part of that, we need to see more investment in the infrastructure that supports the sector, as well as a huge uptick in R&D investment as well. I've said this many times, but yeah, we are very, very supportive of the Minerals Security Partnership and their recent announcement, which I think we discussed earlier today, of the forum, which is very much driving this conversation between like-minded allies to create this alternative midstream process. And to be honest, it's very much about building an alternative to the dominant player in the market, which happens to be China, to give countries like Australia more options and flexibility and resilience in supporting its critical mineral sector. So I know I'm between you and lunch, so I'm not going to go on, but I am around and would very, very much love to talk to all of you, and please do get in touch. But thank you also to Paydirt for having us be a part of this session, and thank you, Jeff.